Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today for this discussion of mindfulness and meditation. My name is Zachary Modell. I'm a therapist at My Therapy NYC, a group practice in the Flatiron neighborhood of Manhattan. This webinar will explore common misconceptions regarding meditation and suggest ways we can immediately begin experiencing the benefits of mindfulness and meditation. Before we begin, we have a few housekeeping items. We have a poll question, and I know some of you have already answered that. Thanks so much. The question is, what do you find most challenging when trying to meditate? Your answers will only be seen by me and will be anonymous. We'll look at the results together later. If you have questions, they're welcome. Just type them into the chat box. Please be aware I won't be able to see them until the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We have a hashtag. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can follow us on Twitter at MyTherapyNYC and use our hashtag MyTherapyChat to share insights and connect with other attendees. Okay, that is it for the housekeeping. We'll now begin by taking a moment to check in with our bodies. Are you comfortable in your chair or however you're situated? Now is a good time to make adjustments if you could be more comfortable throughout the webinar. I'll assume most of you are sitting and address you from that perspective. Take a minute to find yourself in your seat or couch. Feel the contact between your body and whatever surface you're sitting on. Is that surface firm or plush? If you find it easier to focus on your sensations with your eyes closed, go ahead and do so now. How much of your weight is dropping into the support of that surface below you? Is your back also supported? If so, feel that contact too. How about your feet? What does your contact with the floor feel like at this moment? Can you feel the soles of your feet meeting the surface of the floor? Can you feel the surface of the floor meeting your feet? How much of your weight travels down through your legs, into your feet, and is supported by the floor? Try moving your attention from your feet meeting the floor to your behind meeting the seat below you. Are you holding yourself up, or are you dropping into those stable supports below you? Move your attention back and forth a few times between your meeting with the seat and your meeting with the floor. You can even say to yourself, hello seat, hello floor. How about simultaneously feeling both your feet on the ground and your behind in the seat? You can say hello seat and floor. I feel you beneath me. Thank you for supporting me. Let's now return to our discussion of mindfulness and meditation. What do these terms actually mean? Let's begin with mindfulness. Mindfulness is the simple act of being present and paying attention to whatever you're doing. It's really that simple, although that doesn't mean it's easy. Researcher Christopher Germer offers two descriptions: awareness of the present moment with acceptance, or knowing what you're experiencing it while you're experiencing it. In this context, let's consider our initial body check-in, which was actually a brief meditation using the first scope of mindfulness, which is referred to as body mindfulness. What did you notice? Were you able to focus on your experience of your weight and your contact with your seat and the floor? Did you close your eyes? Did you notice any shifts when you did that? Did you feel distracted by other thoughts? Did turning your attention to bodily sensations help you focus, or was focusing harder in that context? What was the tone of that brief exploration? Pleasant? Neutral? Unpleasant? All of this concerns mindfulness, knowing what you're experiencing while you're experiencing it. This could include noticing your feelings, thoughts, sensations, movements, and behaviors in the context of your ever-shifting relationship with your environment. While noticing those experiences, in particular what you identified as pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant, did you also experience conditioned responses? Did you cling to what was pleasant, ignore what was neutral, attempt to avoid or diminish what was unpleasant? Much of our lives tends to be organized this way. Let's also consider the term meditation. Although the terms meditation and mindfulness are often used interchangeably, meditation falls within the umbrella of mindfulness. In other words, meditation is an application of mindfulness. Meditation refers to formal practices that exercise attention, traditionally in the service of developing our capacity for well-being, compassion, insight, and altruism. There are numerous approaches to meditation. Let's now consider reasons for meditating. What comes to mind for you? What led you to dedicate your time to this webinar? Let's start by examining this from an evolutionary perspective. Through this lens, humans organize around two binary states of living. One is a compulsive life based on survival instincts, conditioned by stress and trauma. This is rooted in what is referred to as our threat system, including our fight or flight responses. Alternatively, we can organize around what is referred to our care system, which is sometimes also referred to as social engagement. This is a sustainable way of life rooted in safety and connection, where our natural capacities for healing, regeneration, and learning can flourish. If those ideas are new to you, simply think of two states of being. One when you feel unsafe and disconnected, and the other when you feel safe and connected. I'll play a short section of the video now from a webinar by one of my colleagues here. Christy discusses these concepts in the context of depression and anxiety. This may interest you, as depression and anxiety are both common forms of suffering that have been shown particularly responsive to meditation. At times, Christy uses slightly different terminology, but the concepts are the same.
So the experiences of depression and anxiety are explained by some theorists as reactions to an overwhelmed nervous system. So when you are under stress, any kind of stress, your body may perceive your environment as unsafe. Now, our bodies have built-in systems for dealing with danger, and one of those systems is the fight and flight or sympathetic response. Now, you've maybe heard about fight and flight. It's an activated state in which your body prepares to take immediate action in the face of a threat. So from an evolutionary standpoint, of course, this is very useful. Our early human ancestors encountered all sorts of life and death situations, such as predators or inclement weather, and in those situations, they literally had to either fight danger or flee from danger. So that's where the sympathetic response kicks in. In this response, your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your breathing may quicken, all in preparation to run or to fight. And even though we may very rarely experience the same level of danger as our early human ancestors, we still have this response. And consider those sympathetic features, feeling activated, tense, even quick, shallow breathing. Those are all symptoms associated with anxiety. But we also have other built-in responses, like our parasympathetic response or our freeze response. This is a state that gets triggered when there seems to be no use in running or in fighting. So it's a somewhat paralyzing response, sort of like an animal playing dead when a predator is nearby. And in the freeze response, you may have reduced movement, feel dissociated or sort of outside of your body, and feel just generally kind of numb, which, by the way, are all common symptoms of depression. So we have the fight and flight response, which looks a lot like anxiety, and the freeze response, which looks a lot like depression. And usually if you learn these concepts in your biology class, that's maybe the point where you stopped. There's actually one more element of this nervous system process we want to look at called social engagement. Social engagement occurs when you perceive your environment as safe, when you're able to reach out to others to get your needs met and engage with the world around you in a positive way. You might think of this as the times in which you feel like you're at your very best. And if you struggle with anxiety and depression, this is likely the state that you are trying to get back to.
Okay, now that we've laid out the two pathways of the threat and care systems, let's consider some of their consequences. Christy described how our threat system has provided important evolutionary advantages, but in many contexts of modern life is overkill. This has profound implications. Chronic engagement of our threat system, known as chronic stress, is associated with a great number of illnesses, including anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, heart disease, digestive disorders, autoimmune diseases, memory and concentration impairment, insomnia, chronic fatigue, obesity, and more. That's it for the gloom and doom. Let's switch our attention to the merits of engaging our care system, which my colleague referred to as using the term social engagement. Contemplative practices rooted in mindfulness are designed to override conditioned survival instincts and cultivate a path of sustainable living. By interrupting our stress response, and we know from that description how profound the implications are, and by activating our care system, meditation appears to be beneficial for many of the conditions associated with stress. This includes decreased blood pressure and hypertension, reduced production of stress hormones, decreased anxiety and depression, better sleep, improved immune function, increased memory, concentration, and capacity for learning, etc. On an experiential level, meditators frequently report increased relaxation, increased awareness, presence, tolerance, acceptance, and spaciousness. As awareness increases and reactivity decreases, a life of more intentional choices becomes possible. With these benefits in mind, let's now turn to the title of this webinar, Why Can't I Meditate? All of you have made the effort to be here, so you clearly feel the motivation to try. Let's explore some common obstacles. And speaking of obstacles, we now have the results of our poll question. The winner is, I just can't focus. Okay, that's our first slide, so we will turn to that now. Obstacle number one, I can't focus. It's a classic. It's what our audience has chosen. Meditators, both new and very experienced, constantly report wandering minds. Our minds wander to past actions, regrets, hopes, plans for the future, potential problems. This can include feelings of anxiety, impatience, and boredom. This may also include extremely mundane details, such as going over to-do lists or uneventful occurrences. I'm amused just thinking of it because in so many of my groups, people report having to-do lists going on in their heads. Why is it so hard to simply stay aware of the present moment? Let's reconnect with our evolutionary perspectives. Researchers have identified that our brains tend to be surprisingly active while we are not engaged in a specific task. This state is referred to as the brain's default mode network. Rather than entering a restful state while not engaged in a specific task, our minds tend to be preoccupied with identity and safety. This includes creating a sense of self, projecting that self into the past or future, and looking for problems. As we've already identified, we are masters when it comes to looking for problems and exquisitely attuned to possible dangers. These default mode activities are also associated with depression and anxiety. In addition to vigilantly scanning the environment for negative stimuli, we also weigh negative input far more heavily than positive input, in a ratio of roughly 5-to-1 or more. In other words, we're lightning quick to reinforce negative outlooks, including negative views of ourselves and our relationships, and we easily dismiss more positive feedback. Researcher Rick Hansen says we are Teflon for positivity and Velcro for negativity. We'll turn to neuroplasticity. Luckily, in addition to our tendency to focus on danger and negative outlooks, our brains also have an extraordinary capacity to rewire. This is referred to as neuroplasticity. Initially, this was regarded as limited to our early years. However, it has been demonstrated to apply throughout all of life. So how does all this neuroscience apply to meditation? First, Due to the sensitivity of observation during meditation, we have the capacity to observe our threatened and distracted minds in action. Second, by being less swept away by such tendencies, by continually calling our wandering minds back when they stray, we actually lay down new neural pathways that reinforce these new ways of organizing. In other words, we can put our brain's plasticity to work for us in a positively reinforcing way, rather than reinforcing the states of threat and distraction we are accustomed to. And like just about any other practice, this grows easier and easier over time as these neural pathways are reinforced. If these are not familiar terms for you, just think of this as a process of training the brain to be less focused on threat, more receptive to states of safety and connection, and more capable of focus and discernment. With all of that in mind, let's dispense with any notion that meditation requires a calm, quiet mind. Meditation can in fact be thought of as the practice of returning. Many thoughts will inevitably arise. We don't need to battle them. Instead, we can gently greet them and return our attention to our object of attention, whether that's our breath, our body sensations, an image, etc. We may also experience moments, even if only microseconds, when the mind tastes the refreshment of clear awareness. Let these micro moments register, despite the natural pull to focus on mistakes and deficiencies. Next myth, I don't have time. Meditation, in fact, does not require long periods of time at all. Short meditations are a perfect way to develop a practice and can be deeply refreshing. Short can literally mean a few minutes. Build your capacity step by step. You may eventually enjoy longer meditation sessions. Next myth, I'm too negative. Be reminded that mindfulness is not about forcing oneself to be different. Instead, mindfulness is about honestly observing, as opposed to suppression or avoidance. If your thoughts are negative, observe that. That becomes your object of attention. You might even say to yourself, wow, I'm having many critical thoughts today. Next obstacle, I get bored or sleepy. Meditation calls for a balancing act of either reducing stimulation or uplifting dullness and sleepiness. If you're feeling bored or sleepy, try partially opening your eyes to let in more light. Or try imagining a pleasing image or person that gladdens your heart and brings a wave of excitement. Or begin with an invigorating breathing exercise. If nothing works, wait for a time when you're more rested. Next obstacle, I can't find the motivation. Try joining a group. Groups are a powerful way to foster a sense of connection, including shared motivation and focus. If you're considering groups, we should note that in contemplative traditions, mindfulness was always taught in conjunction with ethics and wisdom trainings. Mindfulness was practiced with the goal of enlightenment as part of an extensive, systematic approach to personal and societal transformation. However, the Western explosion of interest in mindfulness has been primarily secular and has generally decoupled mindfulness from anything resembling religion. For some, this works well. For others, learning mindfulness in the context of traditional teachings could be enormously rewarding. It's worth considering which setting would be best for you. Next obstacle, I don't want to forget the realizations I'm having. When our minds begin to finally relax in a new way and taste the refreshment of clear awareness, we may suddenly feel access to more insight. This is one of the great benefits of meditation. However, new ideas can also become a distraction that we cling to, just as we cling to other things in life that we want to possess and keep forever. Try holding new sights lightly. With faith, they will stay with you and reemerge. Final myth. I can't do it right. Even if we've overcome many obstacles to meditation, we may still somehow remain convinced we couldn't possibly do it right. Studying with a teacher or a group can, of course, provide vital guidance and encouragement. However, we may still be left with a vague feeling that we're somehow doing things wrong or not well enough. Most of us have a strong tendency to quickly get down on ourselves or become discouraged from proceeding. This brings us to our final topic, mindful self-compassion, an extremely powerful medicine for much of what ails us. Self-compassion is derived from compassion, a perspective at the heart of Buddhism and mindfulness. Compassion is described by the Dalai Lama as the wish that all sentient beings be free from suffering. This has always included compassion for oneself. However, Western psychologists have found it beneficial to introduce the concept of self-compassion. Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer have been central to this development. They define self-compassion as follows: when we suffer, caring for ourselves as we would care for someone we truly love. Have you noticed how much more generous you are to dear friends or loved ones than you tend to be to yourself? The idea here is to harness the power of such care and acceptance. This has proven to be extremely effective. This may especially be the case in cultures with an individualistic, highly competitive worldview, such as ours. Many of us have a harsh, highly exacting part of ourselves. Self-compassion offers a balm, allowing us to move out of threat and panic and into a place of safety and nurturance. This is a profound shift in both consciousness and physiology. In this state, we are far more likely to flourish. This includes greater happiness, life satisfaction, increased motivation in learning, improved relationships, and improved physical and mental health. This is precisely what my colleague Christy described to you in the video we watched earlier. Moving out of the threat responses and into the healing realm of social engagement. There are three components to self-compassion. The first is self-kindness. As mentioned, this is the sort of kindness we may generously extend to those we love. When needed, this includes active self-soothing, which you'll be seeing modeled in a video shortly. This stands in contrast to the harsh judgments so many of us frequently subject ourselves to. The next component is common humanity. This is a recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness, the awareness that our personal experiences are part of a larger human experience, including imperfections, mistakes, and suffering. This stands in contrast to the feelings of isolation and shame we often feel regarding our mistakes and flaws, as if we were the only ones to be so outrageously imperfect, as if we were fundamentally unlovable and wrong because of our mistakes. The third component is mindfulness, which we have, of course, explored. Through mindfulness, we can avoid common pitfalls such as over-identification, reactivity, or avoidance, and can instead identify the areas in our lives that call for self-compassion, if we listen. By engaging self-compassion, we also engage a remarkable capacity to hold our experiences, whether they are joyful, neutral, or unpleasant. Rather than turning against ourselves or being discouraged or avoidant, we can courageously turn towards our suffering with courage and discernment. Paradoxically, this can often, although not always, begin to loosen the grip of suffering. At times, new possibilities emerge. Psychiatrist Mark Epstein has written extensively regarding the healing potential of mindfulness as a vehicle to offer ourselves attachment functions such as loving attunement and holding. Let's have a look at a brief video of Chris Germer embodying an example of this.
So people ask me all the time, if there were one tool or one thing that I could do to be more self-compassionate, what would that be? The main thing is to have the capacity to ask yourself, what do I need? And this is a question that when somebody else asks us, oh, what do you need? It just so touches our hearts, but we don't usually ask ourselves that question, what do you need? And also ask ourselves that question in a kind way. Usually there's a kind of an edge to it, And what many people find is really effective in daily life is to be held or touched or in some way when things go wrong by another person. But what we've also found is that we can actually put a hand over our hearts or some other soothing place in a way that does shift our physiology from a threat state to a care state, especially when we're doing it as an act of kindness. So very simply, what I would invite anybody to try, the next time something goes wrong or you feel really bad, just to put two hands over the heart, just to feel the touch of the hands, just to feel the warmth of the hand, and just linger with the touch and the warmth just for a little while and see what happens. See what happens.
Okay, we have covered a great deal of material together. Thank you for such a sustained focus. Let's now move into the realm of the experiential. We'll do a meditation together. Much of it will be drawn from the work of Neff and Germer. As we proceed, try observing any challenges as they arise. As a gracious host, greet distractions warmly and move along rather than getting caught up in a long conversation. Also, keep in mind that although you may be alone wherever you're sitting, we're sharing this experience of this meditation together. At the end, we'll have a chance to discuss our experiences. Begin as we did previously by finding yourself in your seat. Look for a mental and physical posture that is both supportive and comfortable. Notice the tone in your body and mind. We're not looking for perfection here. We're interested in finding the supports available to us now for what we need. If you want to significantly reduce external stimulation, shut your eyes completely. If you're feeling a bit sleepy or dull, you may wish to leave your eyes slightly open with a soft gaze in a downwards angle. Find what's right for you. Now check in with your weight as we did previously. Begin with the contact of your feet meeting the floor. Notice how much of your weight falls through your spine and into your seat below you. Feel that contact with your seat. Could the weight drop more in your shoulders? How about your face and jaw and tongue? If you feel tension, maybe it can soften a bit around the edges. If not right now, that's okay too. If you like, try placing a hand over your heart or anywhere on your body in order to remind yourself that we're bringing not only awareness, but affectionate awareness to this meditation. Begin to notice your breathing. Feeling your body breathe in and feeling your body breathe out. Notice how your body is nourished on the in-breath and relaxes with the out-breath. See if you can just let your body breathe you. There's truly nothing you need to do. Start to notice the rhythm of your breathing, flowing in and flowing out. Maybe you'll notice your whole body subtly moving with the breath, like the movement of the sea. Your mind may wander like a curious child or a little puppy. When that happens, just gently return to the rhythm of your breathing. If it feels right, you can give yourself over to your breathing, letting your breathing be all there is. Just breathing, being breathing. Now imagine yourself in a place that is safe and comfortable. It can be anywhere. A cozy room with a fireplace burning, a peaceful beach with warm sun and a cool breeze, a forest glade. See what comes to mind for you if you invite a place to appear. Anywhere you feel safe and peaceful. Feel free to use your imagination. Let yourself linger in this ease. Soon you're going to receive a visitor, a warm and caring presence, a compassionate friend, an imaginary figure who embodies the qualities of wisdom, strength, and unconditional love. This being may be a spiritual figure or a wise, compassionate teacher. They may embody qualities of someone you have known in the past, like a loving grandparent, or be completely from your imagination. Maybe this figure has no particular form and is just a presence or a glowing light. Your compassionate friend cares deeply about you and would like you to be happy and free from unnecessary struggle. You have a choice to go out from your safe place and meet your compassionate friend, or to invite them in. Position yourself in just the right relation to your friend, whatever feels right. Then allow yourself to feel what it's like to be in the company of this being. There's nothing you need to do except to experience the moment. See if you can allow yourself to fully receive the unconditional love and compassion this being has for you, to soak it in. If you can't let it in fully, that's okay too. This being feels it anyway. Your compassionate friend is wise and all-knowing and understands exactly where you are in your life journey. Your friend might want to tell you something that is just what you need to hear right now. Take a moment and listen carefully. If no words come, that's okay too. Just experience the good company. That is a blessing in itself. Perhaps you would like to say something to your friend. If so, they will listen deeply and completely understand you. Is there anything you'd like to share? Your friend may also like to leave you with a gift, a material object. The object will appear in your hands, or you can put your hands out and receive one. Something that has special meaning for you. If something appears, what is it? Now take a few more moments to enjoy your friend's presence. And as you continue to enjoy this being's good company, allow yourself to realize that your friend is actually part of yourself. All the compassionate feelings, images, and words that you experience flow from your own inner wisdom and compassion. Finally, when you're ready, allow the images to gradually dissolve in your mind's eye, remembering you can call on your compassionate friend anytime you wish. Settle back into your body, allowing yourself to savor whatever happened for you. Perhaps reflecting on words you may have heard or spoken, or an object you may have been given. And finally, let go of the meditation and allow yourself to feel whatever you feel and be exactly as you are. What was that experience like for you? We'd love to hear any of your responses. I'll give you some time to send in your messages if you wish to do so. In the meantime, I will move to a brief case example, and then we'll come back and process all of the meditation. In my clinical practice, I frequently include experiential work that overlaps significantly with mindfulness practices. I ask my clients to observe sensations in their bodies, to place a hand over areas that call out to them, make statements from those parts of their bodies, explore dreams and images that arise for them. In all of this, there is a turning towards. It's a fascinatingly mysterious process as we come into deeper contact with ourselves and one another, exploring unknown or vague parts of ourselves. It also requires courage and compassion. A client of mine recently brought in images he was experiencing where he is in a hole, looking up at a vaguely illuminated opening above him. The hole incrementally descends as time passes, and he is left further behind. When I asked him to make statements from this image, his person said, "I'm stuck here." The hole said, "I can continue to deepen indefinitely." Time said, "I don't care about you, or you're being stuck." This is new material for us. It remains mysterious. We don't know where it will lead. We are not immediately looking for solutions or answers. We are turning towards and leaning into these images, letting them speak to us. Okay, we will now transition into final questions and answers. If you haven't submitted any questions to the chat function, please consider doing so. And I'm going to take a look at what we have here. Okay. Question number 1. Acceptance sounds good in some situations, but not in others. I don't want to passively accept injustice. How does this sit with these teachings? This is a great question. Mindfulness can be powerfully combined with social justice work, and there are many examples of that occurring. I think a quick Google search would reveal many examples of that. There is also a rich tradition going back to the Buddha, who broke with his ruling class, renounced his wealth, and developed this new system of transformation that was really in opposition to materialism and dominant power structures. Also, as mentioned previously, mindfulness was always taught in conjunction with ethics and with wisdom trainings, and was often and is often steeped in service. So acceptance does not need to mean passivity. Acceptance is actually turning bravely towards rather than avoiding or denying reality, and then having the choice how to proceed from there once reality has been identified. All right, I'm going to look for some more questions here. Okay. I wonder if I'd get anything done in life if I was self-compassionate in the way described. This is a common concern about self-compassion. Self-compassion is frequently associated with being weak or being self-indulgent. The I think what that actually indicates is how deeply conditioned we are to motivating ourselves with fear. We often just don't know other ways to motivate ourselves. And that has a lot to do with, over time, even if it works for individual cases, over time, we end up not having faith in ourselves and being subject to anxiety and depression, because living fear-based is damaging. And we've heard in the descriptions by Christy and in my discussion also, the many physical and psychological ways that that's damaging. But it also undermines motivation and creates burnout, and is not a sustainable approach. I think self-compassion is not about wallowing in self-pity. It's actually about providing what you need to bravely face your conditions and then go forth. Much like a loving parent doesn't let their child do things that are not in their interest, but is loving and firm. All right. I'm going to look for some other questions here. We have a question: what benefits does mindfulness have for someone suffering from depression? This certainly taps in with a lot of our discussion. And again, mindfulness, I'm going to go back to Mark Epstein and his interest in seeing meditation as a way we can provide a sense of holding for ourselves, where we are accompanying ourselves, providing what we in psychology we call mirroring, but we're providing that sense of watching with care, noticing, and being with whatever is. Like, for example, in the case study that I brought in, my patient who is seeing himself in a hole, I know that that's challenging for him. It can be scary for him and can feel depressing. But through the work which he's supported with me in doing, but also over time, he can develop the capacity to support himself, to really look at images like that, hold them, explore them, find their textures, find the possibilities, and not have to feel like they have to be moved away from. What if I feel overwhelmed while I'm trying to meditate? This is an important question. In the past, meditation students were frequently told to always push through. And if a lot was coming up, just to stay with the meditation, to go deeper in, to be highly disciplined. And that can work, but it has the kind of risk that we were talking about earlier of this sort of harsh demand. And what has been found more and more is that meditation, as we said, can be enormously healing. However, there are times when it's too much, when people are tapping into material that is important that they tap into, but in the dosage that is fitting for them, right? As with everything, it's the amount that needs to be identified, that can be digested at one time. So there's not, and this is very consistent with self-compassion. It's absolutely in line with this, to identify when something is too much and to draw back. And if you're meditating and you find yourself really going into a place that's too much for you, you can begin to bring some light in by opening the eyes a bit. You can start to return to your body, return to your weight in the way that we have done in our two meditations, feeling yourself supported by the earth, grounded by the earth. You have available all the breath, all the air that you could ever need, right? You can take deep breaths and make use of that. So you slowly draw back into yourself and the supports that are available to us. And that's just something to, that's part of respecting your process and developing the sensitivity that you want, right? As far as what is actually serving me and what is not. Okay. I think that's going to be all for our questions. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us in this discussion, for all your thought-provoking questions, for your patience, and I have a few closing details for you. This webinar was hosted by My Therapy NYC. We're a group practice. We see individuals and couples and run groups. Please have a look at our website. It's full of blogs and vlogs and webinars that can be accessed there. You'll be receiving a recording for today's session and a list of resources following the webinar. If you'd like to continue today's discussion, please use the Twitter hashtag to do so. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, I would really enjoy it. Feel free to reach out to me through email. Finally, I'd also love to see you at my mindfulness and meditation group. We meet on the first Saturday of every month. Okay, everyone, thank you again, and bye.